Hey guys, Matthew here. So, today I'll be bringing you basically the patch of Exile 3.9 patch notes for the upcoming league. I recorded this video and it was like an hour long, so I'm going to try to make it short this time. Like, actually short. So I'm going to skip over most of it because, to be honest, there's not a whole lot that interests me in these patch notes. So I'm just going to go over the things that I think are pretty important. And instead of explaining everything, I'm just kind of going to summarize what the things are and what they do and what they imply. And yeah, I'll try to make it quick. So basically, there's the new Challenge League, Metamorph. It's going to be Boss Killing League. That's cool enough. Then there's new content update. There's the new Exalted Orbs. Those are very, very interesting because from the look of things, you'll be able to use the Exalted Orbs for different type of conquerors on non-influenced items, which can allow to some duping of really, really insane bases that are not influenced but that do have influence type modifiers. So that's something that we'll have to wait and see. Then there's the Awakening, which will be able to fuse things together, like have multiple types of influences. So, for example, a Shaper and Elder Ring at once, or one of the new influences. But there's also the fact that what's really interesting about this is that you can fuse non-influence things to then influence them. So for example, you could take a really bad base that's like Elder or Shaper that's high item level, right? That's cheap, and fuse it with a base that's also not that expensive, that is not basically influenced from the from that's sorry that's not influenced but really good base, so like a steel ring or something like that, or like an elder astral, or sorry, an astral plate, stuff like that. Then you can fuse it, and then you can end up with like an elder astral plate or like a shaped opal ring, stuff like that. Um, so very interesting. I expect these Orb of Awakenings to be very expensive and also very rare. Probably, given the fact they're called Orb of Awakening, maybe they'll even only drop from the Awakener himself. We'll have to wait and see, but I expect these to be pretty expensive. New uniques, new div cards, new Awakened support gems. That's pretty nice. Going to be like the new end game. Some minor changes, not a big deal, except you can now add filters through your account directly. So that's really cool because then there's going to be auto-updating filters and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. Atlas changes, we start in the middle, we go outwards towards regions. Cartographer's sextants now actually don't affect, particular maps. They affect the regions within the Watchstone, so that's really cool. Because that allows to waste a lot less maps when you're going full juice. When you get a sextant like 30% increased quantity in unidentified maps, then instead of needing 3 unidentified maps of whatever map you were running, like an Elder map, now it can be 3 maps in the entire region. So you'll probably get more of your sextants that way. So it's really cool. Blight mechanics is added as a 10% chance encounter, and each blight encounter will have at least 1 oil and one blighted map. So that's pretty good. It's going to kind of make it worthwhile because I expect golden oils to be pretty fucking expensive, and blighted maps to probably also decently expensive. Depending on the price of fractured fossils, we might also see the fractured blighted map meta with 3 golden oils for people who want to do that. It'll all depend on the price of the fossils and the price of like the golden oils, but I could see that happening for sure. Also, blighted uniques are probably going to be fairly expensive, especially if they're rare. So yeah. And they didn't change her script, so she's still going to be saying really annoying nonsense, but oh well. Characters balance, they changed Fortify, so basically the damage reduction for Fortify is now multiplicative instead of being additive as a base with other things. So for example, if you had Fortify and Unshattered Will, it used to be 40%, 40%, or whatever, or 30%, 30%, and then you could reach almost 100% with Fortify, effect and whatnot. Now they're changing that to make it way harder to get really, really high on the damage reduction. That being said, the best way is just going to be stack Fortify effect nowadays. Shock and Chill has been recalculated, so it's easier to shock and chill. That's pretty good. It's going to be easier to shock and chill, and also your shock and chill have a minimum effect that's higher, so that's all good. Basically, it just pretty much means more damage for shock and more chilling for chill. Shrapnel Shot, new skill. It's not called Galvanic Arrow. I expect this to be fairly popular skill as the league goes on. Maybe not as a starter build because nobody really knows how it's going to work. But I expect Galvanic Arrow to see a decent bit of play. Explosive Arrow is like the new meta probably for killing bosses. It's going to be insane. So if you're somebody who wants to kill bosses, Explosive Arrow might be something to look out for sure. Then there's also the addition of all the Ballista Totems. Those are going to be probably pretty fucking OP as well. So yeah, they buffed Blast Lane, they buffed Burning Arrow, they buffed Caustic Arrow. They nerfed Elemental Hit by about 30-35% is the math on that. Does it really matter? Not really. Are a lot of people going to play Elemental Hit? Yes. Is it going to affect the amount of people who play Elemental Hit? Yes. That's basically what they're going for here. They're not nerfing the skill to make it unplayable. They're just nerfing it a lot because it's already insanely strong, so that people can now consider other skills instead of literally everybody playing, Elemental Hit because it's just that good. People are going to consider other things when they see that the damage has been nerfed by like 35%, which is, yes, a lot. But there's so many ways to scale that fucking damage that 35% really doesn't matter. Ice Shot actually got buffed, which is insane because it's already super strong, especially with the Void Fletcher build. So it's even better now. Good. Icicle Mines got nerfed a little bit. Less projectiles, up to 4. Basically instead of 6. So cluttering with it's going to be not quite as good. That being said, there's so many ways to get multiple other projectiles and whatnot. It's probably still going to be a very, very, very good skill. It's just going to be not as good early, like especially in the early campaign and early mapping and stuff. Before you get a lot of investment going through it, it might be not quite as good, but it's still probably going to be the best way to go. Lightning Seal got buffed. Lightning Arrow also got buffed. So Lightning Arrow maybe is going to see a return, especially with the new Voltaxic Rift. We'll have to see. Lightning Spire Trap got nerfed pretty hard. That's to basically, especially early game, right? So the late game damage nerf isn't that big, but the early game damage nerf is actually massive. And that's to prevent people from one-shotting literally every single boss through the campaign. So I'm fine with this. It's not a big nerf. It's still going to be fine. It's still going to be very usable. And it's still going to be in my setup personally. Lightning Warp, I don't know. It's weird. It's changed. They nerfed Molten Strike. They buffed the damage, but they nerfed Point Blank. So technically it's a nerf to Molten Strike. And a pretty big one, actually. So yeah, Molten Strike was already dead. And now it's deader. Orbit Storms got nerfed a decent bit. 3 to 9 to 2 to 7. And activation rate is also lower. Does that mean it's unplayable? Does that mean it's no longer good? No, it's actually still probably going to be the best leveling skill in the game. At least it's my skill of choice because it's what I've practiced with, and the numbers aren't that bad. The activation numbers aren't that bad either. I think Overstorms is still going to be fine. Pestilence Strike got a buff. That's cool. Punishment 2. Rain of Arrows also got a buff. Ray Spectre. You get your third one at level 25 instead of 21. I think it's a really good buff. It's a pretty big nerf for people who do no investment. Now you'll have to invest in your Ray Spectre builds a lot. Like add basically like a level 4 Empower to it with a level 21 gem. With like a +1 on a wand or a Convocant wand or something. So you're going to have to do quite a bit of things to get your Spectres to as good as they used to be. So it's a pretty big nerf to Spectres. In terms of how much investment is required. That being said, they're still going to be super strong. Ray Zombie got nerfed in every single way possible. They're still going to be very, very strong. The reason why they nerfed them like that is so people read these patch notes and are like, okay, zombies are dead. Therefore, I'm not going to play zombies anymore. So for the people who are not going to be playing zombies, basically, that just means more diversity in the league, which is good. That being said, for the people who love playing zombies and who just want to keep playing zombies, they're still going to be insane. It's just that they got nerfed in every single way possible. So less clear speed, less damage, less survivability. Doesn't mean they're bad. No, they're still going to be insane. But, again, more investment required. And this is basically to scare a lot of the player base from all just going towards minions. Because everybody's just played minions and blight. And they're like, oh, this shit's OP. I have like a 5C build. And I can clear the entire game with it. So to make it a little bit more fair towards other skills, nerfing everything has to do with like minions and shit is a good thing. So we have more diversity and not just another very boring minion league. Scourge Arrow got nerfed a fair bit, 12% into 15%, so a decent nerf. But it adds chaos damage flat to skill to the gem. So that's interesting. So I see this as basically like they want to move away from people using this as a pure elemental skill for like delving, right? And they want to take it back to what it used to be and what it should be, which is a chaos damage skill. So there's that. Shattering Seal got a buff, cool. Smoke Mine got a 10% movement speed nerf in the early stages of the gem, so a little bit of a nerf to, getting through the campaign, speed running. But at gem level 20, it's the same, so technically Smoke Mine didn't really change much, and I still think it's very fucking OP because it allows you to do skips that most other skills can't do, like the ones in Combs, for example, or in Sewers, stuff like that you can't do with like Flame Dash. So yeah, Siege Ballista is probably going to be very OP, to be completely honest. Otherwise, buff to Spectral Throw, buff to Split Arrow, buff to Soul Run, nerf to Stormblast Mines, a fairly decent buff once again to single target damage and clearing early league for people who wanted to use that, but a buff late game, but it doesn't matter because nobody uses Stormblast Mine late game, to be completely honest. A change to Summoning Ranging Spear, which is quality of life as far as I understand. Tornado Shot got nerfed in a sense that it's no longer going to clear 3 screens at once, it's only going to clear 1. So you're still fine if you're a Tornado Shot fan. Looking at you, Grimro, still going to play Tornado Shot, right? Yes, you are. Because it's still going to be fine, still going to one-shot the entire screen. The damage didn't get touched. We're fine. Everything's fine. Obviously, the single target damage dropped when they added when they changed the helmet enchant, but it's still an amazing skill. And Tornado Shot is still going to be number 1 for clear speed, probably. Toxic Rain got a buff. That's cool. So for people who wanted to level with Toxic Rain, well, it's even better now. Which is also really important because they buffed Quill Rain, so Toxic Rain is actually really strong. Alright, Val Burning Arrow, that's basically the Val version of the skills. They nerfed Feeding Frenzy, they nerfed Fortify, like I said, because now it's multiplicative with other sources of damage reduction, so you only want to stack a lot of Fortify. Fortify effect, you don't really want to, pair it with other sources of damage reductions because you'll end up getting diminishing returns way more. Impale got a nerf and then a buff, so it's weird. Inspiration got nerfed. Lesser multiple projectiles got buffed by a good bit. The thing is, nobody uses this because greater multiple projectiles is just better. Minion damage got nerfed. Mirage Archer got slaughtered. So this is one of the most important things in the patch notes. Mirage Archer got hurt bad. So you're going from 40% less damage. You start at 40% less damage from 30 and up to 31% less damage from 11. So that's a really big nerf. And on top of that, the targeting distance has been lowered to 70 from 105 units. That's also really big. So Mirage Archer, instead of being a staple in every single bow build, is going to be like a choice now, which I think is good because more diversity, again, is good for the game. So I agree with this change. That being said, for people who just really like Mirage Archer, it's kind of annoying. But it's still an amazing thing. Like, it still pretty much doubles your damage, right? Even with these changes. The only difference is, like I said, it's not going to be like a staple, like you have to use it anymore. Some things, for some builds, you'll want to use other things because it's just going to be better. Onslaught got nerfed like hard. Instead of being a duration of 8 seconds, it's at level 1, it's 3 seconds up to 6.8 seconds. So nerfed at all levels, and the chance to actually trigger is also nerfed by 5%. So it's going to be harder to keep Onslaught up 100% of the time. So attack builds, I feel bad for you. Spellcasters and bow type builds will not be affected by this change whatsoever. So for example, I will be leveling up as Orb of Storms, which is, like I said, what I've been practicing. And I'm not going to feel any different because, to be honest, I'm killing way more than like 4 to 5 monsters per 3 seconds to be able to proc it at all times. So not a big deal to me. Point Blank, I didn't even know that was a support, but apparently it is, and it got nerfed by 20%. So it was never used, and it's going to be used even less. So supported skills, Volley got buffed. Volley got a pretty big buff. The thing is, nobody uses Volley because, again, greater multiple projectiles, and now Arrow Nova is just going to be better. But if you wanted to use Volley for something like maybe Caustic Arrow, it's going to be pretty pog because it's way better. The thing is, now that you have Ice Arrow Nova, like, I don't know. I think, honestly, I'm expecting Caustic Arrow to be played by a lot of people, especially if somebody like Mathil makes a build about it, because Caustic Arrow is going to be actually pretty pog. Then they changed a lot of things on the tree. None of this really matters to me too much, except this one. The Point Blank Keystone now causes projectiles to deal 30% more damage to very close enemies from 50, so 20% less, and dealing up to 30% less instead of 50. So basically, they're not nerfing Point Blank necessarily, they're just changing how it works so that people are less inclined to use it on all the melee builds in the world because it's just that OP. So it is a pretty decent nerf to melee builds that use point blank, something like Molten Strike, for example, right? But for bow builds, that's actually pretty good because once again, it allows you to look at the pros and the cons of it. Because yes, you do less damage at very close, but you do more damage far away. And if you're a bow character, you kind of want to do damage far away, right? So there's that. Necromancer got 20% minion movement speed nerf. That's pretty big, actually. That should hurt their clear speed a little bit. Again, it's just something to scare people away from playing minions. I still think minions are super OP, especially because the amount of investment required to make them super good is like super low. And then they changed basically they changed 2 auras, putting him into 1. Same thing for Guardian. Slayer got a change to Endless Hunger. Instead of being immune to bleeding, you're unaffected by bleeding. So it's going to allow people to make builds that are like self-bleed type builds. I don't really see the point in that, but who knows, maybe. Then they basically buffed all the bow bases. Basically all of them got buffs, so that's pretty cool. Like the end game ones for crafting, so that's really nice. Then crafted modifiers, most of them I don't really care about, except we can no longer get +1 maximum number of curses on body armor, so that's kind of important. Then crafted elemental or chaos resistance penetration has gone down by about 50%, so that's pretty big as well. The can have multiple crafted modifier, instead of needing like 0 modifiers and be able to craft out all 6 modifiers, is going to be at max 3 modifiers, including the can have multiple crafted modifiers, which means all items to be considered good, or 6 stats anyways, will have to be at the very minimum 3 stats, which means the spam alterations into regals, into annuls meta is basically dead. Now it's going to be 3 mods, which means chaos spamming and then hitting some lucky annuls is probably going to be the new thing to do, or like essence spamming, fossil spamming, whatever, and then removing the shitty mods with annuls is probably going to be the new meta when it comes to crafting. Or spam alterations, get 2 mods, and then hope for a good regal. Because if you don't get a good regal, then you got to multi-mod a shitty item, pretty much. Depending on the price of the multi-mod, if it's like lowered to 1x, for example, then it's interesting. But if it stays as expensive as 2x, then you're going to need some very good items to make it worthwhile. So I'm actually looking forward to this a lot, because I'm going to be, spammed by way less garbage items that are just 2 stats and multi-modded to 6 stats by Reddit and stuff like that. So actually, people who hit up, basically we're just going back to crafting like it used to be, like hard, and actually requires a lot of knowledge and stuff, instead of just spamming alterations, regal, annul, multi-mod, profit. And I'm happy with that. I'm really happy with that. That being said, this is annoying to me. The veiled crafted modifiers with hybrid defenses, which means armor, energy, shield, or evasion, and life, have had their values halved. I don't know why. It's already pretty shit. It's already only like 24 life that you get from this mod. So why are they doing that? I guess they're doing that as a nerf to energy shield, maybe, or maybe it's a nerf to evasion. I really don't know, man. I think it's a bad change. It's 24 life. So if the life value is actually halved, it goes from 24 to 12 life, or sorry, 28 to 14 life on a craft. Who cares about 14 life on a craft? That's so bad. So I really hope this doesn't affect the actual life, but only the armor, energy, shield, and evasion. But even then, I think it's a pretty useless change. I don't know why they're doing this, especially their tier progression split by item type. That's also kind of dumb. Like, I feel there's already enough veiled items available, or veiled mods available, and it's already super hard to get all of them leveled up. So I don't really agree with this change. That's one of the ones that I'm kind of about. Anyways, this is the really important part. Shaper and Elder modifiers. Essentially, everything you ever wanted on a Shaper and Elder item has been cut in half. So, for example, elemental damage is extra chaos, cut in half. Non-chaos damage is extra chaos, cut in half. Elemental penetration, cut in half. Anything that was ever good when it came to crafting amulets and weapons, cut in half. Worse than that, anything that was hybrid with a hybrid physical damage roll, for example, with a spell, like for example, physical damage, vicious projectiles or whatever, or like spell damage, arcane surge on hit, or like fortify with physical damage. All those gone, completely gone, at least from Shaper and Elder items. Are they going to be available through the new modifiers? Sorry, the new influences? Maybe, but on Shaper and Elder influence, sorry, Shaper and Elder influenced items, they're gone. And all the damage stats, like I said, cut by half. So that is something that I'm on the fence about because I feel like they're basically removing the value of Shaper and Elder items by a lot. Like, who cares about crafting them nowadays if all the values are literally cut by half, and in some cases it's more than half. I can see it being good though, this change, if there's better modifiers that appear on the new influences and they want people to go towards the new stuff to, you know, try out the new influences and the new crafting. That being said, the fact that they're cutting Shaper and Elder modifiers by half, just, it's, I'm really on the fence about this one, on this change. Like, this is the one change in this whole patch notes that's got me like, I don't know about this one, boys. Like, crafters are probably malding. Like, I'm pretty pissed. Because crafting Shaper and Elder items has always been super fun. And now I was really looking forward to it because the meta was going to change because alt spamming and multi-modding got nerfed hard, right? Because the multi-mod changed. You can't just mod out 4 or 5 mods. It's only 3 at most. And 2 of them are basically, or sorry, only 2 of them are actually a worthwhile mod because one of them is actually the crafted mod. So I was looking forward to that, but by cutting everything literally by half, I just don't really see the point of Shaper and Elder items being used a whole lot anymore. Like, attack speed double damage went from 20% double damage chance to 46. Like, what? 46 from 20? That's huge. So yeah, I don't know. And most of the other mods were just cutting by half. So there's that. Fossil crafting. Another thing I'm pretty on the fence about is the added maximum life and increase life modifier from pristine fossils can no longer roll, which means the hybrid, or not the hybrid, but the percentage life from pristine fossils can no longer roll. So now they're just going to be life rolls. So I think the value of pristine fossils just went down drastically because the only reason I ever used prismatic fossils was to try to get the percentage roll, and now it's gone. So that's pretty dumb. Yeah, you can no longer get main modifiers from serrated fossils on body armors. That's okay with me. I'm guessing MAME on body armors has been moved towards the new influences, or maybe removed completely, and that's a nerf to summoners, but also a nerf to melee, which is kind of yikes because melee's already fucking down in the dirt. So why are they hurting the melee even more? I'm not sure, but I guess it's mostly towards summoners, the reason they did that, and also why they removed it from maces. But I'm on the fence about this change as well. It's a bit yikes. The elemental penetration fossils grants 5 to 7 instead of 7 to 10, and 12 to 15 instead of 16 to 20. And that's elemental penetration from prismatic fossils. So that's also kind of yikes. That's like taking fossil crafting and just kind of hurting it a lot. So yeah, and prismatic fossils penetration as well. Oh yeah, that's what I just said. Yeah, prismatic fossil penetration and then elemental penetration from fossils also hurt. So, all in all, we are losing a lot of damage from these two changes, from fossil crafting, elder, and shaper mods, but I'm guessing this damage all is going to be made up for via other methods, which is going to be the new influences. At least that's my guess. All of this stuff doesn't really matter to me except the fact that there's new higher tier of spell damage that can roll, which means non-shaped and elder influence items will actually be worthwhile to craft again that are not just physical damage weapons, because ever since shaper and elder items, anything that's a weapon that wasn't just pure physical just had to be shaper or elder, because otherwise it was trash. So this is kind of going to change everything, or change a little bit, because they're adding quite a bit of spell damage on non-influenced items. That's pretty cool. Otherwise, another interesting thing, there's some changes to the labyrinths and whatnot, but I'm not too worried about that. Under unique items, there's basically two things that I think are worthwhile. There's the Hyri's Ire, has 100 to 45 to 1 160 to 200 maximum added cold damage to bow attacks instead of 177, or sorry, 173 to 188 and 240 to 262. That's a massive nerf. Does that mean Hari's Ire is going to be used by absolutely nobody? I'm not sure. But it definitely means that there's a lot less people that are going to use it compared to other things. So it's going to put it in line with some other unique items, which I think is okay. It's definitely no longer going to be an S tier unique, though, probably. But whatever. Cool Rain got 10% more damage added to it, basically, from 40% less to 30% less. So as I said, this alongside the Toxic Rain damage buff should mean that Toxic Rain is going to be really, really good for really cheap investment. Like Toxic Rain, Quill Rain builds are probably going to be meta as fuck when it comes to leveling because it's outright always been good. Same thing with Arc. Arc got basically 35 more radius to the chain. Kind of insane. It used to be 50. They cut it in half to 25. Kind of killed the skill entirely. Now they brought it back up to 35. So, oh wait, they gave it 10 back. So they basically put it halfway between what it used to be and what it was up till now. So that should bring a lot of people to Arc again. So for a bow meta, I feel like there's a lot of things that are not focused on bows that they're adding. So like the whole spell damage thing and whatnot, but whatever. Exhaust Nurture is being changed. Instead of having the Ignite spread, it's Ignite Prolif, which might lead to some interesting builds with like Burning Arrow, for example. I could see that happening. And then the next change that I care about is Voltaxic Rift. Now allows you to shock enemies as if dealing 300% more damage, which allows shock to inflict increased damage by taking enemies by enemies by up to 100%. So what this means basically allows you to shock enemies as if dealing 300% more damage. Basically that means that if you're dealing 100 damage, right? So let me put out a calculator so I can show you this. If you're dealing 100 damage, that same 100 damage will be counted as if it was 300%. So times 3 will be counted as 300 damage if you're using it with a Voltaxic Rift. Will it do 300 damage? No. Your 100 damage will stay 100 damage. But when you hit the enemy, when they do the calculation for shocks, right? It's going to be counted as 3 times higher, which is basically, all this means is basically shocking with Voltaxic Rift is going to be 3 times easier than with another unique bow, for example, or another bow in general. And it allows you to shock to inflict increased damage taken by enemies up to 100% instead of 50, which basically means a full shock right now means the enemy is going to take 50% increased damage. When you have a Voltaxic Rift on, they're going to take double the damage. So getting higher shock values is going to be way easier. And then shocking monsters are going to take double damage. So Voltaxic Rift is probably the unique to look out for this league. I'm expecting this shit to be really expensive because it's already a very rare bow. It's already rare. Voltaxic Rift is rare. But it's been out of meta for like a few years. But now they're really bringing it back strong. So yeah, Voltaxic Rift, look out for that thing. Then they're basically putting all monsters in the game harder to kill. They either have more armor, they either have more resistances, and more life. So in terms of armor, that's a pretty heavy nerf towards melee. But we'll see what that actually feels like. So I feel like they're nerfing melee once again. They're kicking it while it's down, which is a bit troll. But more resistances, and then they're removing a lot of the actual sources of penetration. So basically, I want monsters to be a lot. I feel like they want monsters to be a lot harder to kill, and you to feel like, you're not just one-shotting literally everything. So there's that. In terms of Zana mods, we have Essence, Anarchy, Domination, which are all pretty trash. Bloodlines is interesting because of some Prophecy combos, Nemesis, because you can chance Headhunters. Beyond is back, so that's awesome. I'm expecting Headhunters to be expensive. And we have Legion now. Legion is probably going to be amazing when it comes to group farming. So big groups, or if you're farming like just really high tier red maps, Legion is probably always going to be worth it. If you're a solo and farming like lower tier maps, probably skip Legion. Don't do it. It's probably not going to be worth the chaos. But in higher tier maps, the thing is, you have more chances of more Legion spawning instead of just 2, and also you have more chances of the bosses spawning, and you have more chance, or I think you have I think you don't have chance of, say, Marikith spawning in like white maps, for example. So you have more chance of like Marikith and Templar spawning in higher tier maps. So again, I think this is going to be probably the new meta. Like spamming Legion with Legion Scarabs is probably going to be the thing to do this league, especially if you're farming higher tier maps or in groups. Otherwise, quest rewards, no one gives a shit. PvP changes and bug fixes. So that's pretty much it for the patch notes. That's my thoughts on that. My next video is going to be talking about the economy, basically my predictions a little bit in terms of economy and things you should and shouldn't do when it comes to trying to gain as much currency as quick as possible early in the league. Because I've been watching a lot of videos that are like, farm this zone or do this thing or like buy Valorbs before they double in price. Stuff like that, that's just really bad advice. And I want to make a video for you guys to try to actually get some decent advice so you can actually have a chance because the amount of really basic information is just too much, right? I watched a few of those, like 4 or 5 videos of like how to make currency in 3.9 yesterday. Not gonna call out anybody, but let's just say the information was either wrong or so fucking basic that it was a complete waste of time if you'd ever played the game for more than like 2 weeks. So yeah, that's basically my my thoughts on that. Before I leave though, I want to say a huge shout out to my Patreons. That would be these boys, obviously. Huge shout out to like Drool, Casticus, MrCoffee, General XTC, ChemPlay, and Sinsys, and also to Fix, Enumag, Khara, and SDiablo. And special shout out to Kfish as well. And same thing for Casticus. You guys are the man. You know what I'm talking about. Wink, wink. If you want to support me, you can check out my Patreon. You can also check out my Twitch. I will be basically streaming full-time starting the next few days. Honestly, 3.9 is going to be my make it or rig it league, so I expect to go super hard. I've put in hundreds of hours of preparation towards the upcoming league as a trader, as a player, as a speedrunner, etc., etc. So I'm really expecting a lot out of it. I'm going to try to do my best to put out as much content, as high quality content as I possibly can to my Twitch and obviously YouTube a little bit on the side. So if you want to catch me on stream, all the links are going to be in the description as well. So huge thank you to all you guys for watching. For the people who actually sat through the entire 32 minutes of me speaking, that's awesome. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.